back to Dot Life, Dorchester's hyperlocal source of news, content, and analysis in podcast format. We are here with Bill Forry, and you are all in green today, Bill.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you're smiling.
It's a green screen. I am smiling. That was a great game last night. We're back in it 3-2. Celtics, Knicks. The Knicks fans are so effing obnoxious too. And I'm sorry, I know you have New York roots.
Not New York City.
Not New York City,
No.
but close enough. And listen, after Tatum went down, and it was so demoralizing to have that victory last night.
I was actually, when I heard that news, I was like, oh, I got to talk to Bill this week. He's going to be so sad.
The whole city was, and that the mood today is really changed, and I'm feeling good about going to Madison Square Garden and grabbing one back and then winning it in Game 7 on our home court. I think it's going to happen, Erin.
You were lucky we don't shoot in front of a green screen.
I was thinking the same. We can do the weather.
Yeah.
It's raining today, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Celtics victory always puts a smile on my face. I think we're going to win you over eventually. I mean, you don't have a basketball
I'm wide
team.
open. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
You gotta win me over on basketball in general.
So if they beat the Knicks in 7, you're going to root for them. You're going to start wearing green?
I actually have a Celtic shirt.
All right, let's go.
I can wear it.
Smoke them if you got them.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
The Vegas Golden Knights got burned last night by the Edmonton Oilers. Did you watch that
Those sound
game?
familiar.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I was
Yeah,
definitely watching something
I'm telling
else.
you, you are missing out. It is one incredible NHL playoffs.
Okay,
There's
well, if they're
nothing like
still
playoff
going
hockey.
after the Celtics win the championship, then
They
maybe.
won't be.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they won't
I'm
be.
sorry, you're not going to get my attention then.
Well, what are you doing this weekend? Anything fun?
My son's graduating from Boston College High School.
Yay!
Connor Forry.
Go Connor.
Congrats, Connor. He's the latest in the line of Forry men to graduate from across the street, Marcy Boulevard. So
That's exciting.
That's where we'll be on Saturday and celebrating his accomplishments. And he's off to Boston College in the fall.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And how did John do on his exams?
Good question. We should call him up.
Yeah. You want to do it right now? No.
Yeah, let's get him up. He needs to be on next week because I
Okay.
think he's done now.
Okay.
And then he can fill us all in
He's got some time.
on YouTube and Spotify. Everybody wants to know how John Forry did in his finals.
Bated breath. Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. I've got family coming into town. My parents,
Oh,
my sister and her husband, 3 nieces. So it's
Wow.
going to be a full house.
yep. And then everyone's getting ready for Dorchfest. Are they going to
Yeah.
be helping you?
No, they're probably going to be hindering, to be honest with you.
It's coming. A lot of buzz on Dorchfest increasingly, and the parade now. We're
Yeah.
starting to get real. We're 2 weeks out.
Now it's just weather watch time, which is the most.
We're getting the rain
Yeah.
out of the system right now.
That's what I keep saying. May, just get it done. Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Well, we've got some breaking news. Well, not breaking news, but some news this week that we want to cover. One is the Daily Table closure. I was very surprised when I heard that news. It came out of,
Yeah.
for me at least, came out of left field. I did not see that
Do
coming.
you use the Daily Table?
I
You shop there?
have been, but I don't go
Yeah.
often. I think it's a great resource. It was a great asset for our community.
People loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was open for 10 years,
Yeah.
basically.
In
And
Codman.
In Codman. That's
Originally.
the original store on Washington Street. And unfortunately, after we taped last week's show, a few hours later, we found out that the Daily Table has closed now all of its remaining locations. Which,
Pretty abruptly.
Yeah, it did. Well, there was a warning sign back in January when they closed the store in Mattapan Square.
Yeah.
But that was a newer store, and it was in the Loop building that's there on River Street. And when that closed, that was kind of like a bad omen
Yeah.
that there might be more problems. But of course, everybody who has retail connections to the nonprofit side right now is really worried.
Of course. Yeah.
Our front page of the Reporter this week is all about, nonprofits getting hit hard and losing funding for various things. And Daily Table is one of them that was kind of put on notice in recent months that, look, some of the funding that comes through the agricultural department, SNAP benefits,
Right.
other things that are really drivers for their customer base are going to be probably off the table in the coming months, coupled with other problems they were already experiencing with supply side and just the economics of running a small grocery store
Yeah.
in the city. They've been struggling, and the board, from what we've been told, and Bill Walczak wrote a column for us in this week's Reporter, he's a board member,
Yeah.
and was one of the people who helped attract Daily Table to Cobbin Square. Bill's obviously the former head of the Cobbin Square Health Center, and they're the landlord of the building.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of connections there locally, but he said really the board was asked to make a responsible decision to help sort of wind things down before it became really impossible to operate. They had debts they wanted to pay down
Yeah.
to vendors and other things. So I think they probably, from the board perspective, did the responsible thing. From the customer perspective, it did feel abrupt.
Yeah.
But
And such a whole, I mean, that area doesn't have a grocery store. It's a food desert, as Bill mentions in his column. I actually am working on an episode on food deserts in general in a few weeks, so hopefully we'll dig into that a little bit more. But what are folks going to do? I mean, that's a big loss.
It is a big loss. And to your point, the reason that Cobbin Square site was selected was because there really is a food desert other than that. And let's remember the concept behind Daily Table. Doug Rauch, who started it back in 2015, was the CEO of Trader Joe's for like 20 years.
Which I didn't know. That's pretty cool.
And when he came to the Kennedy Business School on like a fellowship back then, and came up with the model for Daily Table because he was frustrated as a grocery vendor or operator at how much waste he saw in the industry and how much food, as it neared its expiration date, they had to toss.
Yeah.
So the Daily Table's novel approach was to capture that market of food that was kind of getting near expiration, producing it into ready to eat meals and affordably, and then also, getting discounts from farms and producers closer to home, and then presenting it to a consumer base that, as you said, is sort of like, trapped in this food desert.
And they focus only on healthy foods, so no sugar enhanced beverages, no desserts, no candies, things like that.
Right. Yeah, and so that was a limited market, but people who went there loved it. As you mentioned, like they have a loyal following. Unfortunately, a lot of these federal cuts that are coming down the pipeline or that have already kicked in. There was a grant they tried to get last year that they didn't get. It wasn't even a Trump era thing. It was under Biden actually, but they didn't get a grant that they were counting on, and that impacted them across several of the stores, including Mattapan, which ended up closing.
I think Bill's point in the article that he wrote was that it was a novel idea to the point where the IRS wasn't fully understanding how to categorize it, and possibly grants also. Like it's not a common thing to give money to.
Right. It's become like they obviously figured out the business model there. It's been around for 10 years and they were able to expand. One of the stores is in Salem that just closed, unfortunately, Nubian Square, and there's one in Cambridge that just closed too. So it's sad to see. And unfortunately, as Chris Lovett writes in a longer piece we have on this week's Reporter, all of the nonprofit entities locally are really bracing for this kind of retraction as they have to deal with, the likelihood of substantial holes in their budget.
Right. Bill Walczak is also the front man for Seven Hillbillies. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, I did know. I've seen him in action. They're quite good actually.
They are. They'll be at Dorchfest.
Dorchfest.
They'll be at the Adams Street Library.
Awesome. Yeah, they hold it down with they definitely have the Americana kind of bluegrass thing going
banjo,
on.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, Bill's a very talented guy. He really is kind of a Renaissance man. In addition to starting the Cobbin Square Health Center with other volunteers back in the 1970s, helping to get Cobbin Academy started, and Daily Table, among other things. He's got his hands in all sorts of. Not to mention he ran for mayor of Boston.
And he runs the Civic in Savin Hill, right? I think
he has been the president of the Savin Hill Civic lately. So
busy guy.
And he writes a column for us. I don't know how he does it.
I don't either. So shifting from Daily Table, let's talk a little bit about other electeds now that we've mentioned some electeds already. You have an article in the paper this week kind of previewing what we might be seeing in a few months.
Well, it's getting close to the deadline where there's 75 candidates for various city offices running right now or planning to run. You got to get signatures to get nominated and get on the ballot.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of people in addition to Michelle Wu and Josh Kraft running for mayor at the moment. Or when I say running, they're collecting signatures.
Have stated their intention to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get on the mayoral ballot, you need 3,000 signatures. To get on the city council at large, you need 1,500.
Okay.
And to get on a district council seat ballot, you have to only get 200. So it's a pretty wide array there. But as we wrote this week, there's a lot of activity. And from my perspective, somebody who's covered political races in the city going back a long time, 30 years now, this is a pretty good clip of competition. Some years you would see, especially at the district level, councilors going unopposed entirely. And if, a critical mass of these folks do make the ballot, there's a likelihood here of all the city councilors at the district level having at least one opponent.
Yeah.
And at the at-large level, same. Like it'll be plenty of candidates to field for a preliminary election, which is in September. Mm-hmm. And then the top 8 in the at-large will go on into November. What's interesting this week, a couple of developments locally. Frank Baker, who formerly represented District 3, is actively collecting signatures to run at large, which was a surprise.
He stepped down 2 years ago?
He did. He stepped down. John Fitzgerald, who was on Dot Life Pod last week. Very interesting interview with him, by the way.
Thank you.
John Fitzgerald is himself facing 2 potential opponents at the moment.
Okay.
Who are gathering signatures. John has been certified for the ballot already.
Oh, yes. Good.
Yeah. And, there was a report last week in one of the Boston newspapers that suggested maybe Frank Baker would challenge John Fitzgerald for his old seat. And that just didn't compute.
No.
And I think that was way off. But Frank Baker is running and is likely to make the ballot, I think, for at large. He has a pretty, tried and true group of hardcore volunteers from his district days.
Yeah.
Frank is a well-known quantity. He can be polarizing, you either love him or hate him kind of thing. But Frank has a column of supporters, especially in District 3, who should make him getting on the ballot not a problem. Even though he kind of signed up late.
Yeah.
He signed up last week.
Yeah.
And people had already been collecting signatures for like 3 weeks. He should get his 1,500, no problem. We won't know for sure for another couple of weeks probably, because the city technically has until like June 23rd to certify people on the ballot. But Frank's an interesting character for a lot of reasons. One is, he's been a more conservative voice on the council when he served from 2011 to 2023. He was known as kind of a contrarian. Even among councilors he had alliances with, he was kind of a wild card. He would often vote off from the rest of the council when they would vote unanimously on a subject, or would. Frank was the one to vote off often.
It's kind of surprising to me, honestly, that he would want to go back to his old job. He took a year and a half off and now decided he missed it, or what? I would think you'd want to try something else.
We have asked, and we haven't really got the firm answer yet. And on his social media platform, he said that he's heard from former constituents that they want him back. I suspect part of it is that Frank sees an opportunity with Josh Kraft challenging Michelle Wu of sort of riding some coattails there.
Yeah, definitely.
He's been out on the stump with Josh Kraft. He's been, obviously supportive of him. He's no fan of Michelle Wu's.
Yeah.
He's not a big fan of the sort of council leadership right now. And when you look at the field of people who are running for at-large council, there may be room for somebody like that. Erin Murphy, who is an incumbent councilor from Dorchester in at large, and is running for re-election. I think it's safe to say she's a pretty safe bet for re-election. She finished second overall last time in the balloting.
But she also ran for another position recently.
She did. She ran for a registry position.
Yeah.
I believe it was Registry of Deeds.
For the state?
It's a county position.
County, okay.
And she did not win that race, but she didn't have to give up her council seat to run.
Yeah.
So she stayed on the council and is running for re-election. Clearly, when you look at the larger field, though, a lot would, I think, align with more of a progressive side, probably, competing with the likes of Ruth C. Louis-Jouen, Julia Mejia, Henry Santana. And 2 years ago, Michael Flaherty, who chose not to run for re-election, sort of late in the game exited the field, and Santana, who also lives in Dorchester, and has the mayor's backing then and now, got that fourth seat.
Okay.
So I think Frank Baker's probably making the calculus that there's an opportunity there, and if he can sort of align himself with Josh Kraft, whether or not Kraft wins,
Right.
you
At
know,
least he's
'cause-
getting some publicity from that, although Frank doesn't necessarily need much help to get
and you get 4
publicity.
votes, don't forget, for at large.
Right.
So
Right.
for new voters in the city, you know, you get 4 at large votes that you can use. You can just do 1, or you can do up to 4. And then for your district councilor, you can only vote for 1.
Okay.
But Frank has that option there of making the case that, you know, give me and Erin a vote, for
Yeah.
example. And there's a route there, I think.
Yeah, I think there is too.
It'll be interesting. And I have to mention District 7, where there's 17 people right now
That's wild.
collecting nomination signatures.
Do you think
in
everybody
T7.
watched that episode with me and Brandy Fluker-Reed and Joel Richards where we talked about you just got to run for office? And
That's
they said,
why
yes,
this is happening.
I knew
it's
it.
all your fault. The election commissioners are going to be pissed.
They are. I know.
You know how many
Sorry,
signatures they have to
guys.
certify now?
But I will say, you know, I might not love all of these candidates, but it is good to see people participating and having competition. That's always a good thing.
I agree. I mean, we've had cycles where, especially at the district level, there's no opponents.
Yeah.
And I think that was true of Frank Baker on a few occasions where
Yeah.
he ran unopposed. And, you know, the spouses out there are going to hate me. They're going to like, Bill, you know the drill, man. Like, I was in their shoes where,
Yeah.
you know, my wife Linda was an elected official. Honestly, I'd be rooting against having an opponent, obviously, because there goes your summer with family stuff. But, you know, from the constituent perspective and, you know, just being a good citizen, it's healthy.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it helps elevate, it helps people, it makes people hustle. It also helps them in the long run. Candidates may or may not believe this, but, you know, having a test for their organization is a good thing.
Totally.
Especially
Yes.
if they want to run for something else, a higher office. Like,
Yep.
you know, how do you know the real depth and breadth of your support unless you can test it against like a
Yeah.
competent opponent?
Right.
And it looks, from the looks of it, and I want to bring up D7 again. This is the seat that Tanya Fernandez Anderson apparently is not going to, you know,
Nope.
is going to leave behind. She hasn't resigned yet, but she doesn't seem to be running for re-election either. So this will be an open seat.
There's no way she would win re-election, right?
You know what?
That cannot happen here.
I think it. You know, honestly, I'm not going to say no. I mean, she has a column of supporters, and in a race where, you know, you have a field of 17 people,
Yeah.
you know, people can cross each other up. But
I know. How am I saying anything can't happen in politics?
it can
I mean, come
happen.
on.
Yeah. Look at where we are nationally. But in District 7, we now have, like, there's several candidates in that group of 17 who are pretty compelling and have a narrative and a story that I think is going to be an interesting one. And you got to say, like, for that volume of people to be running for a district council seat in Boston is encouraging.
Yeah.
It really is. Roxbury and Dorchester seat, it includes parts of Upham's Corner, the Dudley Triangle, but it's based in, you know, in Nubian Square in Dudley.
And some really key
South End.
issues in that area that need
Yeah.
a strong voice.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons that Tanya Fernandez Anderson says she hasn't left yet is, you know, she wants to make sure they have representation through the budget process. You know, I don't think I agree with her position, but at the end of the day, you know, this quest for new blood to come in and represent is drawing some compelling people to this race so far. So we'll see. I think we're going to do a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be talking about it from time to time, but in the Reporter, we've invited the candidates who are running to write op-eds already to say,
Okay.
introduce yourselves to the voters. You know, we
Yeah.
want to hear. We're doing that, by the way, across the board with all the seats.
Yeah. Okay. Open invitation if you want to be on .life Pod. Erin at .life Pod.
Cool.
Drop me a note.
Great.
We'll fit in as many as we can.
Yeah.
One person who will not, sadly, be in office this coming couple of months is Walter.
Walter the dog. But man,
How does a dog lose anything?
well, he ran into a really good candidate, which is,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
every good candidate's nightmare is somebody who's even better. And that's Bridget McDonough, who is going to be the next mayor of Dorchester. We
Okay.
confirmed that before coming on the show today. The committee had a meeting, I think it was Monday night, and you know, the mayor of Dorchester is a contest. It's not an election, right? Although it kind of works like real elections in that the person who raises the most money
Typically
wins usually, right? So it's kind of checks out. But this is all for a good cause, and it's to help pay for the Dorchester Day Parade and the activities around it. From what we've been told from Brianne Gore, who's the head of the parade committee or one of the key people on it, together the various mayor candidates this year raised over $25,000 for the parade, which is awesome.
That's great.
Like, I think Walter the dog and his team, Jenna is his mom.
Yeah.
I think it's Jenna Taylor, who did a great job and ran a very interesting campaign with Walter, who I think is a golden
I think so.
Yeah. Cute dog. And they raised like $10,000.
That's awesome.
And they did a couple of cool events and gift certificates. Apparently, Bridget McDonough, who is a Savin Hill resident, and she and her husband have 2 kids. She's a personal trainer at a gym on Dorchester Avenue called Dot Box, which is a very popular spot on near Savin Hill Ave.
Is she the goodest girl? Is she a good girl?
I haven't met Bridget.
Does she take pets?
No, I don't know if she has a dog, but she may. She and Walter probably should be walking together.
They
in
really
the parade.
should.
They both did a great job, but there's got to be a winner, and apparently Bridget and her team raised over $10,000.
If I beat a dog in a contest, I would never. I would never stop telling people I'm more appealing than a dog.
I was worried for whoever's going to lose to Walter too. It's kind of tough. But when you saw the campaign, and if you go on Walter has his own Instagram account, of course.
Yes.
And you can follow, and you can still donate, by the way, to these candidates, even though the contest technically is over. There's a winner. You can still make a donation. It's all goes to the parade,
which is incredible.
None of this is for snacks for Walter. Or for Bridget, or for Jean Gorman, who ran too. And Jean, I heard, raised a few $1,000s as well.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Jean. And to everybody who helped out. It all goes to put bands on the streets.
Yeah.
And as you know, for organizing Dorchfest the last several years, that's no easy task.
No.
Like getting even people who love this neighborhood and just to ask them for a couple $100s to pay for help pay for a band or whatever, a float, like a truck to carry the kids on the parade.
Yeah.
It all costs money, and it's like $50K a year.
Yeah.
The city kicks in some money. They have to help with the police details, and it's to shut down Dorchester Ave for like 4 hours.
It adds up very quickly. Yeah.
But it's good news. Sunday, June 1st.
Yep.
1 p.m. Dorchester Ave, Lower Mills to Columbia Road.
Rain or shine.
You know where to go, and it looks like it's from what I've heard from Brianne Gore. They have a great lineup of live music for this show. The day after Dorchfest.
Yeah, if you can rouse yourself after an amazing party at Dorchfest, then you should go to that day parade. Absolutely.
It's a whole weekend commitment.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great weather. We're guaranteeing that.
There you go. You heard it here.
I didn't vote for Walter. I felt like Humphrey would get very mad at me if I voted for another dog.
Humphrey?
My dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met Humphrey.
You haven't? No, but he's worth meeting. He's great.
Maybe they should just have a whole subcategory and like a dog exclusive competition next year.
They should. That's a really good idea.
Let's do it. Brianne, let's make it happen.
You heard it.
Okay.
Last thing that we have to talk about today is related to none of these things. It's actually about vaping.
Yeah.
Seth teased this a couple weeks ago when he was here, but he wasn't able to join us. So can you give us the lowdown on what's going on with kids and the vapes?
Sure. This is all news to me because I'm not on Snapchat. So that's
Nor am I.
Probably for the best. But apparently there's so just a step back, there's a group in Cobham Square that's been active for really decades now on the subject of, they're an anti-tobacco group.
Okay.
It's called the Bold Teens Breath of Life Dorchester.
Okay.
Bold Teens, and Cynthia Lesh Johnson, who's now herself a mom, but as a teenager was active in organizing this. Their concern was really the profound health impacts from smoking, and especially among young people, and how they were at the time back in the 80s, 90s in Dorchester. A lot of stores were targeting kids, and kids could easily flaunt the law, so they helped sort of crack down on retail sales. And of course, now at the state level, you can't buy cigarettes in a lot of these stores.
No.
But the kids have figured it out, as they always will.
Kids are smart. Devious.
Underground market, and the bold teens of today, through a research grant that they got, have been sort of canvassing how are kids getting nicotine products, vapes, and cannabis products.
And the answer is New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's always got to do with
always
New
New
Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly.
Live free or die.
It's just a new way of getting it there, which
Yeah.
is, enterprising young people, mostly themselves underage, advertising on Snapchat, other social apps, and targeting their fellow teens, fellow
I didn't
kids.
know Snapchat was still so popular. What a world. Who knew?
Not really that familiar with it, but
No.
I read Seth's piece and I had to edit it, so now I know. They put up on their stories, messages here, with a list of prices, and within a matter of minutes, you get matched up with whoever's got, what you need.
And then they'll actually deliver it to you.
Yeah, they'll usually on a scooter,
Yeah.
one of the little scooters that's bringing all of us food or
Yeah.
whatever. Same concept. The problem here, obviously, is it's illicit trade.
Right.
These are underage kids and sellers, and as you said, people usually are going to New Hampshire, bringing it in, and then making a profit off these sales. The concern from the bold teen side is, they want their peers to understand the health risks. I mean, there's a reason that tobacco products are banned for especially young kids, the addiction issue,
Yeah.
and also the health impact. So Cynthia and the team of kids that she has assembled now, they've been working on it. And in today's Reporter, you can read about it more.
Yeah.
The Boston Public Health Commission and their officials are aware of the problem. Not much you can do, right?
No.
I mean, it's a systemic problem. And interestingly, the kids who Seth quoted in the piece were talking about how, this was really a suburban issue until more recently from their observations. Like,
Why do you think that is? Why didn't it make it to the city until recently?
I'm not really sure. I think, that was part of the story that didn't really get unwrapped quite yet.
Yeah.
But I think what Seth and what we wanted to do this week is kind of surface it,
Yeah.
give these kids some credit. They're the ones kind of surfacing themselves, sort of self-reporting
Yeah.
on this.
And they caught people, right? Like they would respond to the Snapchat ads and go find the seller.
The seller would come to them, they would buy it, and then they would
Yeah.
turn it over to the adults who
That's
were
pretty
involved
cool.
in that. So, and look, I'm sure there's people there, they're snitching on. Nobody got snitched on. Nobody
Yeah.
got dimed out. It's just they want to surface it as an issue and
Yeah.
let folks know, look, as a consumer, you should be aware. This is unhealthy. It's not a
Right.
good idea, and here's why. So it's not a law enforcement thing.
Yeah.
It's more of a public health matter.
Is the smoking age for both tobacco and cannabis in Mass 21?
It is.
It
It's
is,
21,
okay.
yeah,
'Cause it
for
used to
adult
be-
use cannabis.
Did it used to be 18 here, or is that just in New York
I
State?
think it used to be 18 back in the day, but it's no longer.
Okay.
Yeah. So anybody under 21, who's getting their hands on tobacco, they're getting some help there.
Yeah, right. Okay. Wow. What's coming up next week?
Yeah, well, I know that you're talking some more this week about the Ashmont Hill yard sale. We'll
Yes.
be doing coverage of that for next week. Tonight, we're recording on a Thursday. Tonight's the Dot House Health annual Dot Fest, which is always a good party they're having. And then we're doing a lot of run-up to Dot Day coverage. You can read more about Bridget McDonough next week in the Reporter. And, then we're quickly into full-on Dorch Fest,
Yes.
wall-to-wall coverage of bands. We'll be back here. We're recording this at the Record Company, which is a fantastic resource for artists here in this part of the city and really citywide. But
Yeah.
we're lucky to have them here in Dorchester, and a lot of their artists will be profiling ahead of Dorch Fest. And
Actually,
letting
next
folks know.
week we'll have Bobby Boyd on and
Nice.
a few other folks who can talk about artist spaces and the importance of having places like this here in Boston.
Yeah,
So,
and Bobby
yeah,
lives in
good.
Dorchester.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great guy. And he's opened up his space here to help us produce this, help you produce
Yeah.
this, and
Yep.
bring this to a bigger audience. So thanks, Bobby.
Yes, love it. Cool. Well, have a great weekend. Go Celtics.
I'm going to have a great weekend. A great weekend.
Did you notice I didn't even couch it this time? I just said go Celtics. You're winning me over.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm doing it for the whole city. Everybody's counting on you, Erin. We need
I'm
all the
here.
help we can get.
I'm not gonna watch, but I'm here.
All right.
I'll be
Well,
watching.
enjoy your hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, by the way, NFL schedule came out.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. I only saw the Detroit schedule.
We play you guys really early this year. We play you in Buffalo, I think the 5th of October, and then in New England early November. So no snow games this year.
Okay.
Probably.
Well, I mean, Buffalo, it starts snowing in September, doesn't it?
It could. Yeah.
So
definitely.
let's not
You
get
never
ahead of
know.
ourselves
You
here.
never know. How are you feeling about Drake May?
I'm not super confident.
Okay.
No, I've got to be honest about
Really?
that. Yeah.
He's got a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't plugged into the Patriots psyche yet for the new season, so
I mean, he's not Mac Jones, so he's
No.
got that going for him.
no, it was definitely an improvement, but they got a ways to go, and hopefully they're. I heard you and Seth really dissecting the O line and
Yeah.
diving deep into the Patriots depth chart. But
You guys finally got some protection there for Drake.
That's what we
so
need.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Erin.
have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Thanks.